She had followed Derek here after spotting him waiting outside her apartment building for the third time this week. He had been stalking her ever since she broke up with him 6 months ago, and tonight felt different. Dangerous. Her heart pounded as Derek's eyes swept across the dining room, searching for her. She needed help and she needed it now. Her gaze landed on a man dining alone at a corner table, his expensive suit and confident posture marking him as someone important. He looked safe, respectable, and most importantly he was alone. Without hesitation, Nia walked straight to his table, her mind racing with desperation. As she approached, she could see he was handsome with dark hair and kind eyes that looked up at her with surprise. She slid into the empty chair across from him before he could speak. "Please," she whispered urgently, leaning forward so Derek couldn't see her face clearly. "Pretend I'm your girlfriend. There's a man who's been stalking me, and I need him to think I'm with someone." The man's eyes widened slightly, but instead of calling for security or asking her to leave, he studied her face carefully. She could see him taking in her genuine fear, the way her hands trembled slightly, and the desperate honesty in her voice. "What's his name?" he asked quietly, his voice deep and reassuring. "Derek Thompson. He's sitting at the bar wearing a black leather jacket. Please, I know this is crazy but I don't know what else to do. He's been following me for weeks and tonight he seemed angry." The man glanced toward the bar without making it obvious, then returned his attention to her. "I'm Christopher," he said simply. "And yes, I'll help you." Relief flooded through Nia so powerfully that tears nearly sprang to her eyes. "Thank you," she breathed. "I'm Nia." Christopher reached across the table and took her hand, his touch warm and steady. "Tell me what you need me to do. Just talk to me like you know me. Maybe hold my hand. Make it look like we're on a date." She glanced nervously toward the bar where Derek was now staring directly at their table, his expression growing darker. "He's looking this way," Christopher observed, squeezing her hand gently. "You work in downtown, don't you? I think I've seen you at the coffee shop on 5th Street. Nia blinked in surprise. This man was not only willing to help her, but he was also making it believable. "Yes, I work at Miller's Deli during lunch hours." "You've been there?" "Several times. You always remember my order. Black coffee, no sugar, and you always smile even when you look exhausted." Christopher's observation was accurate, and it made their conversation flow naturally. Derek had stood up from the bar and was now walking toward their table. Nia's grip on Christopher's hand tightened involuntarily. "He's coming over," she whispered. Christopher didn't look back but instead lifted their joined hands and kissed her knuckles softly. "Trust me," he said quietly. Derek appeared beside their table, his presence immediately making the air feel tense. "Nia? What are you doing here?" Christopher looked up at Derek with a polite but firm expression. "I'm sorry, do we know you?" "I'm talking to my girlfriend," Derek said, his voice carrying a threatening edge. "Your ex-girlfriend," Nia corrected, finding strength in Christopher's steady presence. "Derek, I told you we're done. Please leave me alone." Christopher stood up smoothly, his height and confident bearing clearly intimidating Derek. "The lady asked you to leave her alone. I think you should respect that." Derek's face flushed red. "Who are you to tell me anything?" "Nia, you're coming with me." "No, she's not," Christopher said calmly. "She's having dinner with me and we'd appreciate some privacy." The restaurant's manager had noticed the commotion and was walking toward them. Derek looked around, realizing he was drawing unwanted attention. He leaned down toward Nia, his voice low and menacing. "This isn't over," he hissed. After Derek left, Nia sank back into her chair, her whole body shaking with delayed reaction. Christopher sat back down and signaled the waiter. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. "I don't know how to thank you," Nia said, tears finally spilling over. "You didn't have to help me but you did. Most people would have called security or asked me to leave." Christopher handed her his napkin. "Most people haven't been in situations where they needed help from strangers. I have, and I remember what it felt like when someone chose to help." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment while Nia composed herself. She studied Christopher's face, noting the genuine concern in his eyes. "I should go," she said finally. "You were having a nice dinner and I've completely disrupted it." "Actually," Christopher said, looking at his untouched meal, "I was having a terrible dinner. I eat alone most nights and it gets lonely. Would you consider staying and keeping me company? As a thank you for helping you?" How could anyone who had just been saved by a stranger's kindness say no to such a simple request? Christopher Bennett had built his fortune by reading people quickly and accurately, but Nia Washington surprised him. As she settled back into her chair, accepting his invitation to stay for dinner. He found himself genuinely interested in learning more about the woman who had approached him with such desperate courage. "I should probably explain why I look like I don't belong here," Nia said, glancing around the expensive restaurant. "I followed Derek because he was waiting outside my apartment again. I saw him come in here and I thought maybe I could talk to him in public where he might behave better." "That was dangerous," Christopher observed, cutting his steak. "Men like that don't usually respond well to being confronted." "I know. It was stupid. But I'm running out of options. The police say they can't do anything until he actually hurts me or damages my property. He just watches me, follows me, shows up places where I work." Christopher nodded thoughtfully. "What do you do for work? Besides the deli, I mean." "I clean office buildings at night and I do data entry work from home when I can find it. 3 jobs total." Nia took a small bite of the salad Christopher had ordered for her, her eyes widening at how delicious it was. "That's a lot of work. Do you mind me asking why you need 3 jobs?" Nia hesitated, then seemed to decide that this man who had already helped her deserved honesty. "My mother has diabetes and her medical bills are expensive. Her insurance doesn't cover everything and she can't work anymore. I'm all she has." Christopher felt something tighten in his chest. Here was a woman working herself to exhaustion to care for her mother, while he spent more money on a single business dinner than she probably made in a month. "That's admirable," he said simply. "Not many people would sacrifice so much for family. She sacrificed everything for me when I was growing up. It's my turn now." Nia's voice was matter-of-fact, without self-pity. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, each lost in thought. Christopher found himself studying Nia's face, noting the tiredness she tried to hide and the quiet strength in her expression. She was beautiful, but it was her character that intrigued him. "Can I ask you something?" Nia said suddenly. "Why did you help me? You could have called security or asked me to leave or just ignored me completely." Christopher considered his answer carefully. "When I was 12, my father left my mother and me. We went from living in a nice house to living in a 1-bedroom apartment. My mother worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. One night she got off work late and missed the last bus. She was walking home alone when a man started following her." Nia leaned forward, listening intently. She ducked into a 24-hour diner, scared and with no money to call a cab. She explained the situation to the manager, and instead of kicking her out, he let her stay until morning and gave her breakfast for free. More than that, he called his brother who drove her home safely. "That's beautiful," Nia said softly. "I never forgot that story. My mother told me that kindness from a stranger saved her that night, maybe even her life. When you asked for help tonight, I thought about that diner manager." Nia's eyes filled with tears again. "Your mother was lucky to find someone like that. And I was lucky you trusted me enough to ask for help." They finished their meal while sharing stories about their very different backgrounds. Christopher learned that Nia had graduated college with honors but couldn't pursue her career in social work because of her mother's medical needs. Nia learned that Christopher had built his technology company from nothing, working 18-hour days for years to achieve his success. "I should pay for my meal," Nia said when the waiter brought the check. "Absolutely not," Christopher replied, handing over his credit card. "You're my guest." As they prepared to leave, Christopher felt reluctant to end their time together. "How are you getting home? Please don't tell me you're taking public transportation alone." "I was planning to take the bus, but I'll be fine. Derek seemed to get the message tonight." Christopher shook his head. "Men like Derek don't give up that easily. Let me drive you home." "I can't ask you to do that. You've already done so much." "You're not asking. I'm offering. There's a difference." During the drive to Nia's apartment, Christopher made a decision that would change both their lives. As he pulled up to her building, a modest complex in a neighborhood that had seen better days, he turned to face her. "Nia, I have a proposition for you." She looked at him with curiosity and slight wariness. "I need a personal assistant. Someone I can trust, someone intelligent and hardworking. The salary would be $60,000 a year, plus health benefits that would cover your mother's medical needs." Nia's mouth fell open. Christopher, I don't have experience as a personal assistant. But you have experience managing multiple responsibilities, dealing with difficult people, and working harder than most people I know. Those are the qualities I need. Why would you offer this to me? You barely know me." Christopher looked at her seriously. "Tonight showed me what kind of person you are. You're brave enough to ask for help when you need it, honest about your situation, and devoted to your family. Those are rare qualities." Nia stared at him for a long moment. This feels too good to be true. Sometimes good things happen to good people. Will you consider it? She took a deep breath. Yes. Yes, I accept. Thank you. This could change everything for me and my mother. As Nia got out of the car, Christopher watched her walk to her building, already planning how he could make her transition to her new life as smooth as possible. He had told himself he was simply helping someone in need, but the truth was more complicated. For the first time in years, he had enjoyed spending an evening with another person, and he found himself looking forward to seeing Nia Washington again. Would you believe that sometimes a single moment of desperate courage can change two lives forever? Have you ever wondered what might happen if you took a chance on trusting a complete stranger? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to see how this incredible story unfolds. The next morning, Christopher arrived at his downtown office earlier than usual, his mind occupied with thoughts of Nia Washington and the impulsive job offer he had made the night before. As the CEO of Bennett Technologies, a company worth over $2 billion, he was used to making quick decisions, but offering a job to a woman he had just met felt different somehow. His current assistant, Mrs. Rodriguez, had given her notice 2 weeks ago, planning to retire after 15 years of service. Christopher had been dreading the process of finding a replacement, knowing that most candidates would be more interested in his money than in actually helping him manage his complicated life. At exactly 9 o'clock, his receptionist announced that Nia Washington had arrived for their appointment. Christopher had called her early that morning to arrange a formal meeting, wanting to discuss the job offer properly in the light of day. When Nia walked into his office, Christopher was struck again by her natural beauty. She wore a simple navy blue dress that was clearly her best outfit, and her hair was pulled back in a neat bun. She looked professional despite her obvious nervousness. "Thank you for coming," Christopher said, standing to greet her. "Please have a seat." "Thank you for seeing me," Nia replied, settling into the chair across from his desk. "I have to admit, I wasn't sure if your offer last night was real." Christopher smiled. "It was completely real. I don't make promises I can't keep." He spent the next 30 minutes explaining what the job would entail. Managing his schedule, coordinating with his various business contacts, handling travel arrangements, and serving as a liaison between him and his employees. The work was demanding but not impossibly difficult for someone with intelligence and dedication. "The salary is $60,000 to start," Christopher continued, "with a review after 6 months that could lead to an increase. The health insurance package covers family members, so your mother would be included. There's also a retirement contribution and 2 weeks of vacation time." Nia listened carefully, occasionally asking thoughtful questions about specific responsibilities. Christopher was impressed by how quickly she grasped the complexity of what he was offering. "I want to be honest with you," Nia said finally. "I've never worked in a corporate environment like this. I might make mistakes while I'm learning." "Everyone makes mistakes," Christopher replied. "What matters is learning from them. Mrs. Rodriguez, my current assistant, will spend the next week training you before she retires. She's agreed to be available by phone for the first month if you need guidance." "And you really want me to start immediately?" "Tomorrow if you can manage it. I know you'll need to give notice at your other jobs." Nia took a deep breath. "Mr. Bennett, this opportunity is more generous than anything I could have imagined. I accept your offer with tremendous gratitude." Christopher felt a satisfaction he hadn't expected. "Good. Now there are some practical matters we need to address." He opened his desk drawer and pulled out an envelope. "This is an advance on your first month's salary. You'll need professional clothing for this position, and I don't want you to worry about the expense." Nia opened the envelope and gasped when she saw the amount. "This is too much. I can't accept this much money before I've even started working." "You can and you will," Christopher said firmly but kindly. "Consider it an investment in your success. I need you to feel confident and professional, and proper attire is part of that. I don't know how to thank you for this. Work hard and be honest with me. That's all the thanks I need." They spent the rest of the morning going over practical details. Christopher arranged for Nia to spend the afternoon with Mrs. Rodriguez, learning the basics of his schedule and preferences. He also gave Nia access to the company's employee handbook and benefits information. During lunch, Christopher found himself thinking about how natural it felt to have Nia in his office. She asked intelligent questions, took detailed notes, and seemed genuinely interested in doing the job well. Unlike other candidates he had interviewed, she wasn't trying to impress him with false sophistication or obvious attempts at flirtation. When Nia returned from her training session with Mrs. Rodriguez, she looked both excited and slightly overwhelmed. "How did it go?" Christopher asked. Mrs. Rodriguez is wonderful. She's been incredibly helpful. I think I can handle most of the daily responsibilities, but there's so much to learn about your business relationships and preferences. You'll learn as you go. Mrs. Rodriguez didn't become an expert overnight either. Nia hesitated, then looked at him directly. Can I ask you something personal? Of course. Why aren't you married? I mean, you're successful, handsome, obviously kind. It seems like you would have found someone by now. Christopher was quiet for a moment, considering how to answer. I've been focused on building my company for the past 10 years. Most of the women I've dated were more interested in my money than in me as a person. After a while, I stopped trying. That must be lonely. It has been. But last night reminded me that there are still genuine people in the world. Nia blushed slightly at the compliment. I should get home to my mother. I want to tell her about the job, and I need to give notice at the deli and the cleaning company. Of course. Take tomorrow morning to handle those matters. Come in after lunch to begin working officially. As Nia gathered her purse and the paperwork Christopher had given her, she paused at the door. Mr. Bennett, I want you to know that I understand how much this opportunity means. I won't let you down. I know you won't, Christopher replied. And Nia? Call me Christopher. We're going to be working closely together. After she left, Christopher stood at his office window looking out at the city below. For the first time in months, he felt genuinely optimistic about something other than business. He had made the right decision in hiring Nia Washington, and not just because she needed the job. He needed someone like her in his life, someone real and genuine in a world that often felt artificial and calculating. Mrs. Rodriguez knocked on his door, interrupting his thoughts. Mr. Bennett? I wanted to tell you that I think you made an excellent choice with Miss Washington. She's quick to learn and asks all the right questions. I'm glad you approve. More than that, I think she might be exactly what you need. You've seemed different today, more relaxed. Christopher smiled at his longtime assistant's perceptiveness. Maybe I have been. Change can be good. Yes, it can be. Especially the right kind of change. As Christopher prepared to leave the office, he realized that hiring Nia had been about more than just filling a position. It had been about bringing someone into his life who reminded him of what was important beyond money and success. Tomorrow, his life would begin to change in ways he couldn't yet imagine. Nia's first official day as Christopher's personal assistant began at 8 o'clock in the morning with her standing in front of her mother's closet mirror, adjusting the collar of a new navy blue blazer. She had spent the previous afternoon shopping for professional clothing with the advance Christopher had given her, choosing pieces that were elegant but not too expensive. You look beautiful, baby, her mother, Patricia Washington, said from the doorway. I'm so proud of you. I'm nervous, Mama. This is such a big opportunity. What if I mess it up? Patricia wheeled her chair closer, her diabetes having required a leg amputation 2 years earlier. Honey, that man didn't hire you because he felt sorry for you. He hired you because he saw something special. Trust yourself. The health insurance starts immediately, Nia said, kneeling beside her mother's wheelchair. You can see the specialist Dr. Martin recommended, and we can afford your new medication. Tears filled Patricia's eyes. I never wanted my health problems to hold you back. You never held me back, Mama. You gave me strength. An hour later, Nia walked through the impressive lobby of the Bennett Technologies building, her heels clicking on the marble floor. The security guard, who had been briefed about her arrival, directed her to Christopher's private elevator. When the elevator doors opened on the top floor, Nia was greeted by Mrs. Rodriguez, who spent the morning showing her the intricacies of managing Christopher's complex schedule. There were board meetings, investor calls, site visits, and social obligations that required careful coordination. Mr. Bennett is in back-to-back meetings until noon, Mrs. Rodriguez explained, but he asked me to give you this. She handed Nia a small gift box. Inside was a beautiful silver pen with her initials engraved on it, along with a note that read, Every professional needs the right tools. Welcome to the team. Christopher. That's very thoughtful, Nia said, touched by the gesture. Mr. Bennett is considerate that way. He remembers details about people. They spent the morning reviewing filing systems, learning the phone system, and understanding the preferences Christopher had developed over years of business dealings. Mrs. Rodriguez explained which clients were difficult, which investors required special handling, and which meetings were truly important versus those that were merely routine. The most important thing to remember, Mrs. Rodriguez said as they broke for lunch, is that Mr. Bennett values honesty above everything else. If you make a mistake, tell him immediately. If you don't understand something, ask questions. He would rather help you get it right than discover a problem later. When Christopher emerged from his meeting at noon, he found Nia at what was now her desk, efficiently organizing files while simultaneously answering the phone with professional courtesy. "Good afternoon, Bennett Technologies, this is Nia," she said into the phone. "Mr. Bennett is in meetings until 3 o'clock. May I schedule a callback for you?" After taking the message, she hung up and looked at Christopher with a smile. "How did your morning go?" "Very well. How are you settling in?" "Mrs. Rodriguez is an amazing teacher. I think I'm getting the hang of the basic routine." Christopher noticed the pen he had given her lying beside her notepad, already being put to good use. "I'm glad you like it." "It's beautiful. Thank you. You didn't need to do that. I wanted you to feel welcomed." Over the following days, Nia proved herself to be a quick learner and a valuable addition to Christopher's professional life. She had a natural ability to read people's moods and motivations, which helped her manage his relationships with difficult clients and demanding board members. More importantly, she brought in warmth to the office that Christopher hadn't realized was missing. Where his previous interactions with staff had been purely professional, he found himself looking forward to Nia's insights about people and situations. "Mr. Harrison from the Seattle office called 3 times today," Nia reported during their end-of-day briefing on Friday. "He says it's urgent, but honestly he seems more frustrated than panicked. I think he's having trouble with the new software implementation and doesn't want to admit it." Christopher looked up from the report he was reviewing. "What makes you think that?" "When I asked if I could help resolve the issue, he became defensive and insisted he needed to speak only with you. In my experience, when someone gets defensive about a problem, it's usually because they're embarrassed." "You're probably right. Harrison has always had trouble adapting to new systems. I'll call him directly and offer some additional training for his team." "I already took the liberty of researching training options in the Seattle area," Nia said, handing him a folder. "There are 3 companies that specialize in our software, and I've included their rates and availability." Christopher stared at her for a moment. "You did that on your own initiative?" "I hope that was appropriate. I thought if I was right about the situation, you might need the information." "It was very appropriate. This kind of thinking is exactly what I hoped for when I hired you." As the weeks passed, Christopher began to depend on Nia's judgment more and more. She had an intuitive understanding of people that complemented his business knowledge perfectly. When investors were being evasive, she could sense it. When clients were having financial problems they hadn't disclosed, she picked up on the subtle signs. But it was the small, personal touches that affected Christopher most deeply. Nia remembered that he preferred his coffee black in the morning but with cream in the afternoon. She noticed when he was stressed and would quietly reschedule non-essential meetings to give him breathing room. She even remembered his mother's birthday and arranged for flowers to be sent to the nursing home where she lived. "How did you know about my mother's birthday?" Christopher asked when he discovered what she had done. "You mentioned it in passing 3 weeks ago. You seemed sad that you might not be able to visit her because of the board meeting." "I can't believe you remembered that. I remember things that matter to people I care about." The phrase hung in the air between them. Nia had said it naturally without thinking, but both of them recognized the significance of her words. "I care about you too," Christopher said quietly. It was a moment that changed something fundamental between them, shifting their relationship from purely professional to something more personal and meaningful. "I should get going," Nia said softly, suddenly aware of how empty the office had become. "My mother will be wondering where I am." "How is she doing?" "With the new insurance and medication." "Much better. She's seeing the specialist next week, and her blood sugar has been more stable." "I can't thank you enough for that. You thank me every day by doing excellent work." As Nia gathered her things to leave, Christopher realized that his days no longer felt empty. For the first time in years, he looked forward to coming to work, not because of deals or profits, but because of the woman who had brought warmth and genuine care into his previously solitary professional life. 3 months into her employment, Nia had transformed from Christopher's assistant into something much more significant. His trusted confidant and closest friend. Their daily interactions had evolved beyond professional necessity into genuine care and mutual respect. Christopher found himself staying late at the office not because of work demands, but because he enjoyed their end-of-day conversations when the building grew quiet and their discussions became more personal. "The investors loved your presentation today," Nia said one evening as she reviewed his calendar for the following day. "Mr. Peterson specifically mentioned how well prepared you were for their technical questions." "That was because of your research," Christopher replied from where he stood at the window, looking out at the city lights. "You anticipated every concern they might have. I just did my job." No, you did much more than that. You understood what they needed to hear before I did. Nia looked up from her computer, studying Christopher's profile against the window. Over the months, she had learned to read his moods, and tonight he seemed contemplative rather than satisfied with the day's success. Is something bothering you? She asked. Christopher turned to face her. Can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life? Like you're going through the motions of what you think you're supposed to want instead of what you actually want? Nia considered his question carefully. Before I started working for you, yes. I felt like I was just surviving, not really living. Why do you ask? I built this company because I wanted to prove something to myself, to show that I could be successful despite coming from nothing. But now that I've achieved that success, I realize I don't know what comes next. What do you want to come next? Christopher walked to his desk and sat down across from her. I want a real life. Not just business achievements and profit margins. I want relationships that matter, conversations that mean something, experiences that create memories worth keeping. You have those things, Nia said gently. Your employees respect you, your clients trust you, and you've built something that provides jobs for hundreds of people. But I come home to an empty house every night. I eat dinner alone, sleep alone, wake up alone. Success doesn't mean much when you don't have anyone to share it with. Nia felt her heart skip at the vulnerability in his voice. Over their months working together, she had developed feelings for Christopher that went far beyond professional admiration. He was kind, generous, and genuinely cared about the people in his life. But she had carefully kept those feelings hidden, knowing that their relationship was complicated by their professional roles. The right person will come along, she said carefully. What if she already has? Christopher asked, looking directly into her eyes. The question hung in the air between them, loaded with meaning neither of them had previously acknowledged out loud. Christopher. Nia began, but he held up his hand. I'm sorry. That was inappropriate. You work for me and I shouldn't have put you in that position. You didn't put me in any position, Nia said quietly. But we should be careful about blurring professional boundaries. You're right. I apologize. They worked in slightly awkward silence for the next hour, both aware that something important had shifted between them. When Nia finally prepared to leave, Christopher walked her to the elevator as he always did. Nia, he said as the elevator doors opened. I value our working relationship too much to let my personal feelings complicate it. Can we pretend I didn't say what I said? If that's what you want. It's what's best for both of us. But as the weeks passed, neither of them could forget that moment of honesty. Their professional interactions remained flawlessly appropriate, but underneath the surface, both Christopher and Nia were acutely aware of the growing emotional connection between them. Christopher began finding excuses to involve Nia in activities beyond her normal responsibilities. He asked her to accompany him to business dinners where her insights about people proved invaluable. He invited her to company events where her natural warmth helped him connect with employees he had previously known only through reports and meetings. You're good with people, Christopher observed one evening after a particularly successful company party. The employees respond to you in a way they never have with previous assistants. I think it's because I understand what it's like to work hard for everything you have, Nia replied. Most of your employees come from backgrounds more like mine than yours. That's exactly what I mean. You see things I miss. They had stayed after the party to help clean up, and now they were alone in the decorated conference room, surrounded by empty champagne glasses and scattered streamers. Can I tell you something? Nia asked suddenly. Always. Working for you has been the best thing that ever happened to me. Not just because of the money, but because you've made me feel like I have something valuable to contribute. You do have something valuable to contribute. More than you realize. They were standing close to each other, and Nia could see the genuine admiration in Christopher's eyes. For a moment, the professional boundaries between them seemed insignificant compared to the depth of their connection. We should go, Nia said softly, stepping back before the moment could become something they might regret. Yes, we should. But as Christopher drove Nia home that night, both of them knew that their feelings had grown beyond what could be easily dismissed or ignored. They were falling in love with each other, and despite their best efforts to maintain professional distance, that love was becoming impossible to deny. Thank you for everything today, Nia said as Christopher pulled up to her apartment building. Not just for the party, but for including me in decisions and trusting my judgment. Thank you for being someone I can trust. As Nia walked to her building, Christopher watched her go with the growing realization that his feelings for her had nothing to do with gratitude or professional respect. He was in love with Nia Washington, and that love was becoming the most important thing in his life. Inside her apartment, Nia kissed her sleeping mother's forehead and prepared for bed, her mind full of thoughts about Christopher. She was in love with him too, and while that love complicated everything about their professional relationship, she could no longer pretend it didn't exist. The question was no longer whether they had feelings for each other, but what they were going to do about those feelings. And that question would soon demand an answer neither of them could avoid. The turning point came on a rainy Thursday evening when Christopher received an urgent call from the nursing home where his mother lived. Nia watched his face change from professional concentration to deep concern as he listened to the voice on the other end of the line. "I understand," he said into the phone. "I'll be there within the hour." "What's wrong?" Nia asked as he hung up. "My mother fell and broke her hip. They're taking her to surgery tonight." Christopher grabbed his coat, his hands shaking slightly. "I need to cancel tomorrow's board meeting and reschedule the Patterson contract review." "I'll take care of everything," Nia said, immediately reaching for her phone to begin making calls. "Just go." "Thank you. I don't know how long I'll be gone." "Take as long as you need. Family comes first." Christopher paused at the door, looking back at her. Would you consider coming with me? I know it's not part of your job, but I could use the support." Nia didn't hesitate. "Of course. Let me just call my mother to let her know." During the drive to the hospital, Christopher told Nia more about his mother than he had ever shared with anyone. Elizabeth Bennett was 72 years old and had been his only family since his father left when Christopher was 12. She had worked 2 jobs to put Christopher through college, sacrificing her own dreams to ensure his success. "She developed dementia 3 years ago," Christopher explained as they sat in the hospital waiting room. "Some days she remembers me clearly, other days she thinks I'm still a child. But she's the strongest person I've ever known. She sounds wonderful. I'd like to meet her when she's feeling better." "She would like you. She always told me I worked too much and needed to find someone special to share my life with." The surgery took 4 hours. Christopher paced the waiting room while Nia handled his business calls and rearranged his schedule. She also ordered food for both of them, knowing that Christopher hadn't eaten since lunch. "You don't have to stay," Christopher said as the evening stretched into night. "This could take hours." "I'm not going anywhere." When the surgeon finally emerged with good news about the successful operation, Christopher's relief was visible. As they walked to the recovery room, he took Nia's hand without thinking about it, needing the comfort of human connection. Elizabeth Bennett was a small woman with silver hair and Christopher's same kind eyes. Even sedated and recovering from surgery, she looked alert and interested when Christopher introduced Nia. "This is Nia, Mom. She works with me." Elizabeth studied Nia's face carefully, then smiled. "She's beautiful, Christopher. And she has a good face. I can tell." "Thank you, Mrs. Bennett. Your son talks about you all the time. He's a good boy, but he works too hard. Are you taking care of him?" Nia glanced at Christopher, uncertain how to answer. "I try to make sure he eats lunch and doesn't schedule too many meetings in one day." "Good. He needs someone to look after him." They stayed with Elizabeth until she fell asleep, then drove back toward the city in comfortable silence. As they approached Nia's apartment building, Christopher suddenly pulled over and turned off the engine. "I need to tell you something," he said. "What is it?" "Tonight, having you there with me meant more than I can express. You didn't just help with work calls and logistics. You gave me strength when I needed it most." Anyone would have done the same thing. No, they wouldn't have. Most people would have seen it as an inconvenience or an imposition. You saw it as a chance to help someone you care about. Nia felt tears prick her eyes. "I do care about you, Christopher. More than I should, probably." "Why more than you should?" "Because I work for you. Because our lives are so different. Because this kind of thing never works out for people like me." Christopher reached over and took her hand. "What kind of thing?" "Falling in love with your boss. It's like something out of a fairy tale, not real life." "So you are falling in love with me?" Nia looked down at their joined hands. "I've already fallen. I tried not to, but I couldn't help it." "Good," Christopher said softly. "Because I've fallen in love with you too." They sat in his car outside her apartment building, holding hands and finally acknowledging what had been growing between them for months. "What happens now?" Nia asked. "I don't know. I've never been in this situation before. Neither have I. All I know is that tonight showed me something important. Having you in my life makes everything better. The good times are more meaningful and the difficult times are more bearable." "I feel the same way." Christopher lifted their joined hands and kissed her knuckles gently. Will you have dinner with me this weekend? Not as my assistant, but as the woman I'm falling in love with? Yes, Nia said without hesitation. And will you come with me to visit my mother this Sunday? I think she would enjoy getting to know you better. I'd love to meet her properly. As Nia got out of the car, Christopher called her name. Yes. Thank you for tonight. For everything. Thank you for letting me be there with you. Upstairs in her apartment, Nia found her mother waiting up for her despite the late hour. How did it go, baby? Patricia asked. His mother is going to be fine. The surgery went well. I meant with you and that man. You're glowing. Nia sat down beside her mother's wheelchair, unable to hide her smile. We told each other how we feel. And how do you feel? Like I'm falling in love with the most wonderful man I've ever met. Patricia smiled and took her daughter's hand. Then I'm happy for you. You deserve someone who sees how special you are. Are you sure? He's my boss, Mama. It's complicated. Honey, love is always complicated. The question is whether it's worth the complications. As Nia prepared for bed, she thought about her mother's words. Christopher was worth any complication, any challenge, any uncertainty. For the first time in her adult life, she was allowing herself to believe in the possibility of a love story with a happy ending. And maybe, just maybe, that fairy tale could become real life after all. Do you think workplace romances can really work, or are we just setting ourselves up for heartbreak? What would you do if you found yourself falling for someone whose world seemed completely different from yours? Let us know in the comments and make sure to subscribe to see what happens when two hearts refuse to listen to logic. The crisis began on a Monday morning 3 weeks after Christopher and Nia had admitted their feelings for each other. They had been carefully navigating their new relationship while maintaining professionalism at work, but their personal happiness was about to be tested by the biggest threat Christopher's company had ever faced. Mr. Bennett, Nia said as she entered his office with his morning coffee and a stack of urgent messages. Mr. Williams from the legal department needs to see you immediately. He says it's critical. Christopher looked up from his computer, where he had been reviewing quarterly reports. Did he say what it's about? No, but he looked worried. 5 minutes later, James Williams, Bennett Technologies' chief legal counsel, sat across from Christopher's desk with a grim expression. We have a serious problem, Williams began. Tech Global Industries is claiming that our new software contains stolen code. They're filing a lawsuit alleging intellectual property theft and demanding an immediate injunction to stop all sales. Christopher felt the blood drain from his face. Tech Global was one of the largest technology companies in the world, with legal resources that could bury a smaller company like his. That's impossible, Christopher said. All of our code was developed in-house by our own programmers. I believe that, but they claim to have evidence. More problematic is their demand for an immediate court hearing. If they get their injunction, we'll have to stop selling our software while the case is pending. How long could that take? Months, maybe years. And we'd be fighting them with a fraction of their legal budget. Christopher's mind raced through the implications. Software sales generated 70% of his company's revenue. An injunction would force him to lay off most of his employees within weeks. There's something else, Williams continued. The timing of this lawsuit is suspicious. It came just days after our biggest competitor, Datasoft, failed to win the Morrison Industries contract that we secured last month. You think Datasoft is behind this somehow? Datasoft and Tech Global have been business partners for years. It's possible they're working together to eliminate us as competition. After Williams left, Christopher sat alone in his office, staring out at the city skyline. Everything he had built over the past decade was under attack, and he wasn't sure how to fight back. Nia knocked on his door and entered when he called for her to come in. Mr. Williams told me about the lawsuit, she said. What can I do to help? Christopher looked at her, grateful for her steady presence. I'm not sure there's anything anyone can do. If they stop our software sales, I'll have to let go of most of our employees. There has to be something we can fight this with. Fighting Tech Global in court would cost millions of dollars and take years. Even if we win eventually, the company would be destroyed in the process. Nia sat down across from his desk, her mind working through the problem. Tell me about the Morrison Industries contract. Why was it so important that Datasoft wanted it? Morrison is expanding their operations globally. The contract was worth $50 million initially, but it could lead to hundreds of millions in future business. And our software was better than Datasoft's? Much better. Morrison's technical team said our solution was more innovative and cost-effective. Nia leaned forward, an idea forming in her mind. What if this lawsuit isn't really about stolen code? What if it's about eliminating competition for future contracts? That's what Williams suggested, but we can't prove it. Maybe we don't need to prove it in court. Maybe we need to prove it in the market. Christopher looked at her with confusion. What do you mean? What if we could show other potential clients that Tech Global and Datasoft are willing to use legal intimidation to eliminate competitors? Companies don't want to work with bullies. That's an interesting idea, but how would we do that? Nia stood up and began pacing, her excitement growing. Remember when I researched those training companies for Mr. Harrison's software problem? I found out things about their business practices that weren't in their marketing materials. You want to research Tech Global and Datasoft? I want to research their partnership and their history of using lawsuits to eliminate smaller competitors. If we can document a pattern of this behavior, we can show the business community what's really happening. Christopher felt the first glimmer of hope he'd had all day. That could work, but it would require a lot of research and investigation. Then let's get started. Over the next 72 hours, Nia threw herself into the most important research project of her life. She contacted business journalists, former employees of both companies, and industry analysts who had observed their tactics over the years. What she discovered was even worse than they had suspected. Tech Global and Datasoft had used similar legal tactics against at least 6 other smaller companies in the past 5 years. In each case, the lawsuit was either dropped or settled quietly after the smaller company agreed to withdraw from competing for major contracts. This is it, Nia said as she presented her findings to Christopher and Williams. They're not trying to win in court. They're trying to scare us into backing down from future competitions. This is excellent work, Williams said, reviewing her documentation. But can we use it legally? We can share this information with business reporters and industry publications, Christopher said, understanding Nia's strategy. If the business community knows what's happening, Tech Global and Datasoft will face public pressure to drop their lawsuit. And potential clients will think twice about rewarding companies that use intimidation tactics, Nia added. Christopher made the decision to go public with their findings. Within a week, major business publications were reporting on Tech Global and Datasoft's pattern of using questionable lawsuits to eliminate competition. The story gained momentum when other small companies came forward with similar experiences. The pressure worked. Tech Global quietly dropped their lawsuit 2 weeks later, claiming they had resolved their concerns through further investigation. We did it, Christopher said as he and Nia read the news of Tech Global's withdrawal. Your research and strategy saved the company. We did it together, Nia corrected. I just provided the information. You had the courage to use it. Christopher stood up and walked around his desk to where Nia sat. You saved my company and you saved the jobs of 300 employees. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me. We're a team. Christopher reached down and helped her stand, then pulled her into his arms. Yes, we are. In business and in life. As they held each other in his office, both realized that the crisis had shown them something important about their relationship. They worked together not just as employer and employee, or even as boyfriend and girlfriend, but as true partners who could face any challenge together. The lawsuit had threatened to destroy everything Christopher had built, but it had also proved that with Nia by his side, he could overcome anything. The victory celebration was small and intimate, just Christopher and Nia sharing dinner at the same restaurant where they had first met 6 months earlier. The legal crisis had been resolved, the company was secure, and for the first time in weeks, both of them could relax and enjoy each other's company without the weight of business pressures. I keep thinking about what could have happened, Christopher said as they waited for dessert. If you hadn't found that pattern of lawsuits, Tech Global might have succeeded in shutting us down. But they didn't succeed, Nia replied, reaching across the table to take his hand. And now the whole industry knows what kind of tactics they use. Other small companies won't be as vulnerable. You're remarkable, you know that? The way you approached the problem, the thoroughness of your research, the strategy you developed. You have a brilliant business mind. Nia smiled at the compliment but shook her head. I just did what needed to be done. Anyone would have tried to help. No, they wouldn't have. Most people would have seen it as my problem to solve. You saw it as our problem. It was our problem. Your company, our jobs, our future together. The phrase, our future together, hung in the air between them, loaded with meaning and possibility. Is that what you want? Christopher asked quietly. A future together? More than anything, Nia answered without hesitation. These past weeks, working together to save the company, have shown me that we make a great team. Not just professionally but in every way. Christopher lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. I love you, Nia. I love your intelligence, your loyalty, your strength, and your kindness. I love how you see solutions where others see only problems. I love how you make me want to be a better person. Tears filled Nia's eyes. I love you too, Christopher. I love your integrity, your generosity, and how you care about your employees like family. I love that you took a chance on me when no one else would have. I love that you see potential in people that they don't even see in themselves. What happens now? Christopher asked. How do we move forward? Carefully, Nia said with a smile. We're going to have to figure out how to balance our personal relationship with our professional one. I've been thinking about that. I want to promote you to Director of Strategic Operations. It would involve more responsibility and a significant salary increase, but more importantly, it would put us on more equal footing professionally. Christopher, you don't need to create a position just for me. I'm not creating it just for you. The past few weeks have shown me that the company needs someone in that role, and you've proven you're perfect for it. You understand both the technical side of our business and the human side of managing relationships. Nia considered his proposal carefully. What would my responsibilities include? Research and analysis, strategic planning, managing key client relationships, and serving as my partner in major business decisions. Essentially, you'd be doing many of the things you've already been doing, but with the title and compensation you deserve. And personally? How would we handle our relationship? Christopher had been thinking about this question for weeks. Honestly and professionally. We'll be transparent with our employees about our relationship, but we'll maintain appropriate boundaries at work. Our personal feelings won't influence business decisions. I accept, Nia said, her smile brilliant. Both the promotion and the challenge of making our relationship work. Christopher signaled for the check, suddenly eager to continue their conversation somewhere more private. As they prepared to leave the restaurant, he paused. There's something else I want to ask you, he said. What is it? Will you come away with me this weekend? Somewhere we can just be Christopher and Nia, not CEO and Director of Strategic Operations. I want to spend time with you without thinking about business or responsibilities. Where did you have in mind? My cabin in the mountains. It's simple, peaceful, and completely private. We could talk, walk, read books, cook dinner together. Just enjoy being in love. Nia's eyes lit up with excitement. That sounds perfect. Friday evening found them driving through winding mountain roads toward Christopher's cabin, a modest but comfortable retreat nestled among pine trees with a view of a pristine lake. As they unpacked their bags, Nia marveled at how different Christopher seemed away from the city. He was more relaxed, more playful, more willing to simply enjoy the moment. They spent Saturday morning hiking around the lake, talking about their childhoods, their dreams, and their hopes for the future. Christopher told Nia about his plans to expand the company internationally, while Nia shared her desire to eventually start a foundation that would provide educational opportunities for young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. We could do that, Christopher said as they sat on a fallen log overlooking the water. The foundation, I mean. We could start it together. You'd want to do that with me? Nia, I want to do everything with you. Build a business, start a foundation, travel the world, raise children if you want them. I can't imagine a future without you in it. That evening, as they sat by the fireplace after dinner, Christopher took Nia's hands in his. I know we've only been together romantically for a short time, he said, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. You're the person I want to share everything with. I feel the same way, Nia said softly. Being with you feels like coming home. They made love that night with a tenderness and passion that sealed their commitment to each other. Afterwards, lying in each other's arms, they talked about their future with the certainty of two people who had found their perfect match. I have something to ask you, Christopher said as they watched the sunrise from the cabin's deck Sunday morning. What is it? Christopher dropped to one knee and pulled a simple but beautiful diamond ring from his pocket. Nia Washington, will you marry me? Nia's hands flew to her mouth in shock and joy. Christopher, are you serious? I've never been more serious about anything. I love you, I want to spend my life with you, and I don't want to wait any longer to make it official. Yes, Nia said, tears streaming down her face. Yes, of course I'll marry you. As Christopher slipped the ring onto her finger, both of them knew they were beginning the most important chapter of their lives together. They had found not just love, but true partnership, and they were ready to face whatever the future might bring as long as they could face it together. The engagement announcement brought happiness and congratulations from everyone who knew Christopher and Nia, but their joy was about to be tested by a threat from the past that neither of them had anticipated. 2 weeks after Christopher proposed, Nia was leaving work late one evening when she noticed a familiar figure waiting by her car in the parking garage. Derek Thompson stood leaning against her vehicle, his presence immediately filling her with the same fear she had felt that night at the restaurant 8 months earlier. "Hello, Nia," Derek said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Congratulations on your engagement. I read about it in the business section of the newspaper." "Derek, you need to leave me alone," Nia said, keeping her distance while reaching for her phone. "I'll call security." "I wouldn't do that if I were you. We need to talk and you're going to want to hear what I have to say." "I have nothing to say to you. But I have things to say to you. Interesting things about your rich boyfriend and how he got his start in business." Nia felt a chill run down her spine. "What are you talking about?" Derek pulled out his phone and showed her several photographs. "These are pictures of Christopher Bennett at illegal gambling operations 5 years ago. High-stakes poker games run by some very unsavory people." "That's impossible. Christopher would never do anything illegal." "Oh, but he did. And not just gambling. These gambling debts were paid off with insider information about his competitors. Corporate espionage, Nia. Your boyfriend built his fortune by selling other companies' secrets." Nia stared at the photos, her mind racing. The images clearly showed Christopher in what appeared to be underground gambling establishments, but she couldn't believe he would be involved in anything illegal. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. $500,000 to keep these photos and the evidence of his corporate espionage out of the newspapers. Without this story, Bennett Technology stays successful and you keep your fairy tale life. With this story, his company collapses and he goes to prison. You're lying. These photos are fake. Derek laughed coldly. Check the metadata yourself. These are real photos taken by real private investigators. Your boyfriend has some very dark secrets, Nia. Even if those photos are real, they don't prove corporate espionage. Maybe not by themselves, but combined with the financial records I've obtained showing suspicious payments to employees of competitor companies, they paint a very clear picture. Nia felt sick to her stomach. She didn't believe Derek's allegations, but the photos were troubling, and she knew that even false accusations could destroy Christopher's reputation and business. "I need to think about this," she said. "You have 48 hours, Derek said. "After that, I go to the newspapers and the FBI." That night, Nia lay awake staring at the ceiling while Christopher slept peacefully beside her. She couldn't bring herself to tell him about Derek's threats, but she also couldn't stop looking at the photos Derek had shown her. The next morning she made a decision that would change everything. Instead of confronting Christopher directly, she decided to investigate Derek's claims herself. Using the research skills she had developed during the tech global crisis, Nia began digging into Christopher's financial history from 5 years ago. What she found confused and worried her. There were indeed large cash deposits in Christopher's personal accounts that coincided with major business deals his company had won. There were also payments to individuals who worked for competitor companies around the same time that Bennett Technologies had gained advantages in contract negotiations. But as Nia dug deeper, she discovered something Derek hadn't expected her to find. The gambling establishments in the photos had been part of an FBI sting operation targeting organized crime. Christopher hadn't been gambling there. He had been working undercover as an informant. The cash deposits weren't from illegal gambling winnings, but payments from the FBI for his cooperation in their investigation. The payments to competitor employees weren't bribes for corporate secrets, but compensation for information they provided to law enforcement about illegal activities at their own companies. Christopher had been helping the FBI investigate corporate corruption, not participating in it. Armed with this information, Nia finally confronted Christopher that evening. "Derek is back," she said as they sat in Christopher's living room. "He's trying to blackmail us." Christopher's face went white. "What kind of blackmail?" Nia showed him the photos on Derek's phone and explained his demands. "He claims these prove you were involved in illegal gambling and corporate espionage." Christopher stared at the photos for a long moment, then sighed deeply. "I was hoping this would never come up." "So it's true?" Nia asked, her heart breaking. "The gambling photos are real, but not for the reasons Derek thinks." Christopher took her hands. 5 years ago, the FBI approached me because they suspected several of my competitors were involved in organized crime. They needed someone on the inside of the tech industry to help them gather evidence." "You were working for the FBI?" "As an informant, yes. Those gambling establishments were fronts for money laundering operations. I went there wearing hidden recording equipment to gather evidence against the real criminals." Relief flooded through Nia so powerfully that she started crying. "Why didn't you tell me?" Because the investigation led to several arrests and convictions. The FBI asked me to keep my involvement confidential to protect both their methods and my safety. Some of the people who went to prison have connections to organized crime. Derek doesn't know any of this? Obviously not, or he wouldn't be trying to use it as blackmail material. They spent the next hour planning their response to Derek's threats. Christopher suggested involving the FBI, but Nia had a different idea. Let's give Derek exactly what he's asking for, she said. You want to pay him $500,000? No, I want to give him the truth. All of it. Including your cooperation with federal law enforcement and the real reasons behind those financial transactions. Christopher smiled at her strategy. You want to turn his blackmail attempt against him. I want to show him that trying to blackmail a federal informant is a federal crime. The next evening, Nia met Derek in a public restaurant, wearing a wire provided by the FBI agents Christopher had contacted. Derek arrived confident and smug, expecting to collect his blackmail money. Did you bring the payment? He asked. I brought something better, Nia said. I brought the truth. She handed him a folder containing documents that explained Christopher's cooperation with federal law enforcement, complete with FBI letterhead and official seals. Derek's confidence evaporated as he read the documents. This is fake. You made this up. Check with the FBI yourself, Nia said. The case number is right there. 2 FBI agents approached their table at that moment. Derek Thompson, you're under arrest for attempted extortion of a federal witness. As Derek was led away in handcuffs, Nia felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The threat that had haunted her past was finally gone, and her future with Christopher was secure. That night, as they celebrated Derek's arrest and the end of his threats, Christopher held Nia close. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you about the FBI work earlier, he said. I hated keeping secrets from you. I understand why you had to. And I'm proud of you for helping law enforcement fight corruption. We make a good team, don't we? Even when facing blackmail attempts. The best team, Nia agreed. Nothing can threaten us when we face it together. They were right. With Derek in custody and their love stronger than ever, Christopher and Nia were ready to build the future they had always dreamed of sharing. 6 months later, on a beautiful spring morning, Nia Washington walked down the aisle of the small chapel where she and Christopher had chosen to exchange their wedding vows. The ceremony was intimate, attended by Christopher's mother Elizabeth, Nia's mother Patricia, and the close friends and colleagues who had supported their love story from the beginning. Nia looked radiant in a simple but elegant white dress, while Christopher stood at the altar in his best suit, his eyes filled with love and joy as he watched his bride approach. Mrs. Rodriguez, who had come out of retirement for the occasion, served as matron of honor, while James Williams, Christopher's lawyer, stood as best man. Dearly beloved, the minister began, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Christopher Bennett and Nia Washington, 2 people whose love has grown from friendship and mutual respect into a partnership that will last a lifetime. Christopher and Nia had written their own vows, wanting their words to reflect the unique journey that had brought them together. Nia, Christopher said, taking her hands, 8 months ago, you walked into my life at a moment when you needed help, but you were also exactly what I needed. You taught me that success means nothing without someone to share it with. You showed me that love isn't just about finding the right person, but about becoming the right person for someone else. I promise to love you, support you, and face every challenge alongside you for the rest of our lives. Christopher, Nia replied, her voice steady despite her tears, you saved me that first night, but more than that, you believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You saw potential in me that I never knew existed. You taught me that love isn't about changing yourself to fit someone else's world, but about finding someone who appreciates the world you bring to them. I promise to love you, challenge you, and build our dreams together for the rest of our lives. Elizabeth Bennett, despite her dementia, had a moment of perfect clarity as she watched her son marry the woman who had brought such happiness into his life. She's perfect for you, she whispered to Patricia, who squeezed her hand in agreement. After the ceremony, the small wedding party moved to Christopher's house for a reception that was more like an intimate dinner party than a formal celebration. The backyard had been transformed with simple white flowers and string lights, creating an atmosphere of warmth and joy. During dinner, James Williams stood to offer a toast. I've known Christopher for 10 years, and I've watched him build a successful business through hard work and determination. But I've never seen him as happy as he's been since Nia entered his life. Together, they've shown that the best partnerships are built on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine love. Mrs. Rodriguez followed with her own toast. In all my years working for Christopher, I never saw him smile the way he smiles when Nia walks into a room. Nia, you brought joy into his life, and Christopher, you gave Nia the chance to show the world how remarkable she is. You're perfect for each other. As the evening progressed, Christopher and Nia found themselves surrounded by love and support from everyone who mattered to them. Derek's threats were a distant memory, the company was thriving under their joint leadership, and their future stretched ahead of them full of possibilities. Mrs. Bennett, Christopher said to Nia as they danced to their first song as husband and wife, how does it feel to be married to a former federal informant and current technology CEO? It feels like the beginning of the greatest adventure of my life, Nia replied, her arms around his neck. How does it feel to be married to a woman who went from 3 minimum wage jobs to director of strategic operations in less than a year? It feels like I'm the luckiest man in the world. Later that evening, as the guests began to leave, Patricia Washington pulled her new son-in-law aside. Thank you, she said simply. For what? Christopher asked. For seeing what I've always seen in my daughter. For giving her the chance to show how special she is. Thank you for raising such an incredible woman. Elizabeth Bennett, having one of her clearer moments, took Nia's hands. You take care of my boy, she said. He's got a good heart, but he needs someone like you to help him remember what's important. I will, Nia promised. And he'll take care of me too. As Christopher and Nia prepared to leave for their honeymoon in Italy, they took a moment to look back at the path that had brought them together. From that desperate whisper in a restaurant to their wedding day, their love story had been anything but conventional. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Derek hadn't been stalking me that night? Nia asked as they drove to the airport. No, Christopher said without hesitation. I believe we would have found each other somehow. Maybe not that night, maybe not in that restaurant, but somewhere, sometime. Some connections are meant to be. I love that you believe in fate. I believe in us. Everything else is just details. Their honeymoon in Italy was perfect, filled with lazy mornings, long walks through ancient cities, and quiet evenings planning their future together. They talked about expanding Bennett Technologies internationally, starting their educational foundation, and maybe someday adding children to their family. When they returned home, they moved into a new house together, one large enough for Patricia to have her own comfortable suite and for Elizabeth to visit whenever she was able. Their home became a gathering place for friends and family, filled with love and laughter. The educational foundation they started together became their shared passion project. The Washington Bennett Foundation provided scholarships and mentorship programs for young people from disadvantaged backgrounds, giving them the same kind of opportunities that Christopher had created for Nia. Bennett Technologies continued to grow under their joint leadership, becoming known not just for innovative software but for ethical business practices and generous employee benefits. Other companies began copying their model of promoting from within and providing comprehensive healthcare coverage. 5 years after their wedding, as Christopher and Nia sat in their backyard watching their 3-year-old daughter play with her grandmother Patricia, they reflected on the journey that had brought them to this perfect moment. Do you remember what you told me that first night? Nia asked. When I asked you why you helped me? I told you about the diner manager who helped my mother. You said kindness from a stranger saved her that night. Your kindness saved me too. And your courage in asking for help saved me from a life of loneliness. Their daughter ran over to them, demanding attention and hugs, and as they lifted her between them, Christopher and Nia knew they had created something beautiful together. Not just a successful business or a loving marriage, but a legacy of kindness, courage, and hope that would continue long after they were gone. Sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with a desperate whisper and grow into a lifetime of shared dreams. Christopher and Nia Bennett had proved that fairy tales could come true, even for people who had never dared to believe in them. Their love story was complete, but their life together was just beginning, filled with endless possibilities and the certainty that whatever challenges they might face, they would face them together with love, courage, and unwavering faith in each other. The whisper that had started it all, "Pretend I'm your girlfriend," had become the foundation of a love that would last forever.